welcome everyone to this very special version of Crush Your Mountain Personal Growth. With me today, as you can see on the screen, is a bereavement coach. Her name is Wanda Williams. She's going to show us her new book that is out now. And the reason why that's so important, and I thought it would be wonderful to have her on the program, is because grief, loss, and bereavement is common to all of us. And no matter where you are, no matter what you've been through, it's one thing you have gone through or you will experience is some sense of grief, loss, or bereavement. So we wanted to do a quick deep dive with Miss Wanda to talk about her book, to talk about her own experiences, and to discuss the idea, the concept of grief and loss. Because you notice, I didn't say just death, because bereavement doesn't have to be just that. Grief doesn't have to be just that. So, Miss Wanda Williams, tell us about yourself. I know that you've been a psychiatric nurse for many years, but we wanted to dive into that. We wanted you to introduce yourself to my people. Welcome to Crush Your Mountain Personal Growth.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I feel blessed to be here. My name is Wanda Williams. I am the author of this international bestseller, Coping with the Loss of a Loved One.
Excellent.
A little bit about my background.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Hold up a little bit more to the camera. We have to see that. That's beautiful.
There you are. And I want you to notice at the cover of the book, there's a path that leads to light. And there's a story, a brief story behind that, and then I'll share more about myself. But the story behind this is I look at life as a journey, and we're on this path. And oftentimes we hear people say the best is yet to come. But for me, with this book, and the way I want to explain it is the best is yet to come, but it's as we continue on this journey of life, the best is not necessarily here on this side, but what is yet to come on the other. And that is how I look at it. When someone says to me, the best is yet to come, I look at it in that sense, because life is more than just what we see here. There's something better on the other side, which helped me move forward with grief. So just to share a little bit more about myself, other than author of this book, I have been in mental health nursing for over 30 years. I'm a motivational speaker. I often even speak about grief or loss. And I also right now am a grief coach, which I enjoy because I feel like it's my calling to help others to overcome and move forward from that loss of a loved one, because that was an area that I was stuck in at one time. And today I'm just so happy to be where I am, and with a mindset to know that today and tomorrow is going to be okay.
That's truly amazing. You know, I appreciate that point that you mentioned about the fact that you were in grief, you went through that. Now, I wanted to dive deeper into that, but before I do, tell us a little bit about what it was like being a psychiatric nurse and some of your experiences, and how has that led you into the journey of grief itself?
By being in mental health nursing, I have completed many assessments with different people. And we have this misconception that, take for example, a muscular male who seems to be happy, seems to be fine. And even though he's lost his spouse or his mom or his father, whoever the loved one is, he's going to be okay. He's fine. He's moving forward. He's just got it all together and he's doing good. But too many times I've completed assessments on people that fit this criteria. And in talking with them, there are people who have contemplated suicide. There are people who have attempted suicide because of the weight, the pain, a feeling that they just can't bear the loss of that loved one. So it made me realize more so that so many of us walk around with this facade. Outwardly, we appear to be perfectly fine, but on the inside, we're a total mess. And those are the people that I want to reach, to let you know it's okay to be who you are. You don't have to pretend that everything is okay, because sometimes everything is not okay. And it's all right that everything is not okay,
mm,
but in time, it gets better. So that is why I really am thrilled to be doing grief coaching, because it allows me to meet many different people and to reach them where they are, and to establish trust with them and let them know that I'm here to help you and you don't have to do this alone. Sometimes it even helps just to have someone to talk to that you don't know. And that goes a long way.
indeed, indeed. So now tell us this: when it comes to the stages of grief, do you actually work with them and take them through the stages, or do they reach you at a certain stage? Now, I'm referring to I believe her name is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's book, classic book on
Mhm.
death and dying, and she discussed those 5 stages of grief. Now, usually that's oftentimes with one that's dealing with terminal illness. But when it comes to uh, individuals who are on the bereavement side of things, at what point do you find your people to help those individuals to serve?
Well, the 5 stages that you're speaking of is first denial, then you're angry, you bargain, you go through a stage of depression, and then finally you accept. Now, those are her 5 stages of grief, but we all don't grieve in that order.
Hmm.
And it's okay that we do not. So when I meet people, they're in different stages. A lot of times they're angry. Um, Oftentimes they're depressed, but we're in different stages. It's not necessarily in that order. Sometimes we're stuck in certain orders, uh, but all of it's all right, because I meet people where they are. I don't try to change you or say, oh no, it should be, this is where you should be, or it should be this way, because that's not the case. We're all different beings, and we handle situations in life in a different manner. And that is what I believe is best. I believe it's best to approach people from that position, as opposed to thinking it has to be this way or that way, because it's not. It's whatever it is right now is just what it is, and we'll work with it where you are right now.
Excellent. There's so many important aspects to that, because people who are angry oftentimes are actually dealing with grief, and that's the way they express it. And then, of course, there are those who are dealing with guilt that comes from the bargaining aspect. If I had only done such and such, isn't that true?
That's true. And oftentimes it reminds me that oftentimes people feel like that they haven't done enough.
Hmm.
I'll use myself as an example. I felt like for almost 2 years, I put my life on hold to take care of my mother. And
Hmm.
even worked night shifts so that I could be home during the day to do all that I could. And even though that was the case and that I did everything I could, there was a period of time when I felt like I should have done more. I could have done more. I was getting depressed about that. It was really weighing me down. And I had friends that say, Wanda, no, you did far and beyond what most people do. Because for me, I had no desire. I just put my mother into a nursing home. I wanted to keep her with me, because as a child, I promised her that's what I would do. But I realized sometimes we make promises that we can't keep, because as we become older, we become adults, life ends up being a way that we may not have even anticipated. And you just do the best that you can, because in the end, you want your family member, your loved one, to receive the best care possible. So if that means that they have to go to the assisted living, to nursing facility, whatever that is, you just do the best that you can, and you want that loved one to receive optimal help.
I so very much identify with that. And just a little bit in terms of personal story, because at one point I faced the dilemma of having my mom go into a nursing home or taking care of her.
Mhm.
And at that point in my life, I was actually in training for gerontology and in studying geriatric health and development. And the challenge was, the decision really was, who was going to take care of her. And I put everything on hold. And the job that I had at that time, I left and I took a night job. and I took care of her during the day.
Mhm.
And but ultimately, you see, the difference was I was much younger than I am now, and I had to make a decision. And tell me something. What turned the corner for you when it came to making um, absolving yourself, because we have to forgive ourselves many times.
I felt like there were times that the weight of guilt was so heavy on me. I felt like my world, after my mother had passed, I felt my world had totally fallen apart because mom just wasn't just mom. She was
Mhm.
my best friend. Mom was my world.
Mhm.
And I recognized there was a problem with me when I would wake up in the morning. The first thing I thought about was, oh, I'm still here. Meaning I didn't
Mhm.
want to be. I didn't want to be here. The guilt that I felt, the depression, everything that was weighing me down, I no longer wanted to be here. And prayer has brought me a mighty long way because, and this too is how the book came about, because in my healing process, to move from that stage of not wanting to be here to where I am today, I look forward to every day that God sends my way. I'm at a place that I thought I would never be. I'm at peace with myself. I recognize I did the best that I could, and I took really good care of my mom. I
Mhm.
recognize that now, but I had to go through a process that I do explain in this book because my process was a journey, and journaling through my pain helped me tremendously. Reading the word, recognizing that in life, reminding myself, as I said earlier, that we look at each other and we only think about this physical being that we are. But who we really are spiritual beings in a physical body. So, from my healing process, it came from the Word of God and what He's already said in His Word that we don't talk about. And that's another reason why death is so difficult for us as people here in the Western culture, because we don't talk about these things. We can dress up and go to church every Sunday if we want to. But when it comes to being fearful of death, when it comes to no longer existing, we never really talk about how to be prepared for this. How do we move forward when that loved one passes on? Because let me tell you something, none of us came here to stay.
Well, it's really interesting because I've come across a number of different discussions and things like that. And in our study of the Bible, and indeed, I've spoken with over the years, over the decades, having read the Quran, having read various sacred texts. In the Bible, you find what the Bible, what Jesus himself said, your word is truth, when he was praying to his Father. And one of the things that was very profound was the discussions that happened directly from the Old Testament through the New Testament, because you have this thread where when Abraham is told to offer up Isaac, it said that he reckoned that God could bring him back from the dead. He was waiting for the resurrection. And then Job himself, it says that he in his turmoil, in his pain, in his suffering, he says, if a man dies, can he live again? And he says, all my time, during my compulsory service, that's what he called it. He says, I will wait. And then in there, in I believe it's chapter 14, he says, you will call, I will answer. You will have a longing for the work of your hands. But later on through there, you see the psalmist David as king. He writes he pens these words, and he makes a statement, an interesting statement. He says, and it's ironic because he was a king, therefore in politics in that sense. But he says, the first thing he says, well, don't trust politicians. But he makes a statement that their breath goeth forth. In Hebrew, that word breath, ruch, meaning force, life force. He goes back to his ground. In that day, his thoughts perish. And then his son later on, King Solomon is called the wisest man, next to Christ. He makes the statement. He says, the dead, the living are conscious that they will die. As we are all aware of, that's going to happen. But the dead are conscious of nothing at all. That's he says that he refers in Ecclesiastes 9, verse 5. Then in verse 10, he says, all that your hands do with your very might. But now, if it was ending there, because so many people say that Solomon was kind of fatalistic and negative, but he really wasn't. It was what happens next when Jesus makes this statement, because here you see this discussion, this belief in a resurrection that's taking place from Abraham through Job, through King David, through Solomon. But then Jesus has this wonderful experience, and he knew that this is where he was going to bring it. We know about Lazarus. Everyone knows about Lazarus, but it's in the statement that Lazarus' sister makes to Jesus that we see this continuation of the understanding that Abraham had way back in the day. Because he says, Lord, if you were here, my brother wouldn't have died. He says, your brother will rise. She says, I know that he will rise in the resurrection on the last day. And then Jesus makes the point, well, I'm the resurrection. It is by means of me that resurrection is going to happen. But now, the idea that the other side from a biblical model, the trajectory, is having our loved ones return back to us in our arms. And how was that proven? It was proven in so many ways. Well, Jesus, the most famous one is Lazarus. He brought Lazarus come out, right? Mm-hmm. But then prior to Jesus being here on earth, there are at least three recorded resurrections in the Old Testament. Elijah, the prophet. In fact, so many people said that you would refer to Elijah as coming again, if you remember, because he was such a powerful prophet in the hand of God. Well, Elijah resurrected a child in two cases. One was the widow of Zarephath, and there was a second woman who had a husband, but the son had fallen sick and died, and he brought that son back to life. And so here's this example of the resurrection, the faith that they have. And so Jesus himself comes and brings it full circle and saying, yes, there is going to be that resurrection. I'm going to have that resurrection. Now, the wonderful thing for you and I is seeing a world where, as Jesus mentioned, and as he inspired his friend John to say, where death is no more, neither mourning nor outcry nor pain is no more. But here's what's interesting. in that reference, and you find that reference there in Revelation, because we've traveled in the entire Bible, as it were, right? Isn't it interesting that the Bible says that the tent of God is now with mankind. It comes down out of heaven. And that wonderful prayer that we're told to pray for, when we say, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Now you see it being fulfilled. And here is where now this resurrection takes place. My mom, your mom, brought together, and we have the greatest family reunion ever known in the history of humanity. Seeing where our relatives that we don't even know, because you and I are related, you didn't know that. But of course you would, because we are related through Noah, Adam, and everyone else. So everybody, would it be wonderful to see how we're all interconnected? You know?
Yes.
Here's the wonderful thing. I want to encourage everyone to pick up your book. And is it on Amazon?
You can go to my website, mywordtherapy.com. That's mywordtherapy.com. If you place an order through my website, I can autograph the book and send it to you. Otherwise, it is on Amazon.com. And if you also wanted the ebook version, if you have a Kindle and you love to read from the Kindle, then you can go to Amazon.com to order the book that's entitled Coping with the Loss of a Loved One.
Yes, indeed. Now, yeah, that's so vital, so important that that we do that. Now, in the last couple of minutes that we've got, bereavement does not have to always involve death. Have you dealt with individuals who were grieving other losses?
Something that's very common that I've dealt with is the loss of a pet.
Really?
And people could probably hear about that and say, oh, that's strange. I don't understand the importance of that. But you have to be a pet lover like myself. My dog Morgan is 13 years old. I could not love Morgan more. She's a miniature schnauzer, but I couldn't love her more if she were a human being. I just could not. And there are many people walking the earth that are that way. We're pet people. So I deal with quite a few people who have lost their pet and they are grieving very heavily, very heavily. Wow. So that is something that's common.
Yeah.
But also at a time like what we just came out of with the pandemic, not only losing loved ones unexpectedly, but people are grieving loss of jobs. Maybe now, even though you've gone back to work, maybe it's not the same job. Maybe the pay is different. Maybe you're trying to figure out how to make ends meet, so to speak, because maybe the husband went back to work, the mom hasn't gone back because kids are not back in school, or if they may be back now. But there's a time period when kids were at home and moms were trying to leave the dads out. Maybe there's some dads too that were helping out with homeschooling the children, and it affected individuals financially. So there's a lot that we're coming out of now post-pandemic, though we're still not where we used to be and may never be. We're making adjustments, but there's a lot of loss that people are experiencing right now. That's not only through the death of a person, but it could be other things, broken marriages, loss of marriages you didn't see it coming, you were blindsided. So you're trying to figure out what to do to pick up the pieces. Maybe there's low self-esteem in there because you can't figure out what happened. Why did this happen to me? It's just so much that's going on right now in this world. Absolutely.
Well, I want to tell you, I want to thank you so very much for taking the time to share this information. It's vital that all of us take the time to reassess ourselves in life and understand where we are in this particular stream of time, and to have a hope that helps you cope is so vital. So once again, I want to take the time to say thank you again, Ms. Wanda. Look forward to more information coming from you. And, friends, as I say, Don't just climb your mountain, crush through it. Uh, if you need to share and speak with somebody, I want to encourage you to do so. Don't think that you can handle it by yourself, because sometimes grief is a myth that will crush you.
Yes.
So again, thanks for looking and watching. If you found any of this of value, I'm going to leave information on the link to Ms. Wanda's books and to her website under in the comments below. And again, I look forward to hearing from you. And myself, I do grief coaching. Chrysalis Transformational Coaching is my site, and you'll find a link to that below. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. See you next time.